The night was alive with expectation. In a small village of ancient Israel, whispers traveled through narrow streets, bouncing off clay walls and olive trees swaying gently under the moonlight. Tonight was not just any night, it was a wedding night. The people knew what that meant: joy, dancing, feasting, and the grand arrival of the bridegroom. But weddings in Israel were not like weddings today. The bridegroom often delayed his coming, making the whole village wait in anticipation. The bride was ready in her chamber, her heart pounding like a drum, while her friends and guests prepared to welcome the groom with blazing lamps once he appeared. And among the crowd, 10 virgins stood apart. They were chosen to carry lamps, to honor the groom, to guide him through the darkness of night. Their role was not small, it was a place of honor, a sacred duty. The air smelled of oil and smoke as they trimmed their lamps. Flames flickered against their youthful faces, casting dancing shadows. 5 of them looked confident, calm, and ready. But the other 5? Restless, distracted, and careless. Hours passed. The groom delayed. The lamps grew dim. Whispers turned into yawns, laughter into silence. The 10 virgins sat together under the cold night sky, waiting, until their eyes grew heavy. Then suddenly, a voice split the silence like a trumpet blast. "Behold, the bridegroom comes. Go out to meet him." The village stirred. Doors swung open. The ground seemed to shake with excitement. The virgins awoke in shock, fumbling with their lamps. The hour had come. The bridegroom was finally here. But in that moment of panic, a great difference appeared among them. Before we dive deeper, I want to ask you, if the trumpet sounded tonight, would your lamp still be burning? This parable is not just a story, it's a mirror for your soul. Stay with me to the very end of this video because the secret of the oil will be revealed, and only those who listen carefully will understand why Jesus warned us through this parable. And before we continue, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Bible Tales Capes, and click the bell, because only those who stay ready will never miss the bridegroom's coming. As the cry rang out in the midnight air, the 10 virgins jumped to their feet. The silence of waiting was broken, replaced with hurried movements, trembling hands, and hearts racing like drums of war. But in the midst of the chaos, a calmness rested on 5 of them, the wise virgins. Their lamps were steady, flames alive, dancing against the darkness. Why? Because long before this night they had prepared. Each of them carried not just a lamp, but also a small flask hidden carefully by their side, a vessel filled with extra oil. This oil was their secret. It was their treasure. It was their assurance that no matter how long the night stretched, their lamps would not die out. Imagine them standing in the darkened street, their faces glowing, their lamps burning strong while others struggled. They did not panic because they had been ready for this very moment. The delay of the bridegroom had not caught them unprepared. They whispered to each other with smiles. "See? This is why we brought the oil." One trimmed her lamp, pouring a few drops of oil into the base, and the flame leapt higher. Another carefully adjusted the wick, and the light grew brighter. Together, their lamps cut through the shadows like beacons of hope. Their hearts were not filled with fear but with joy, for the cry was no longer a warning but an invitation. The bridegroom was near. Their waiting was not wasted. Their extra oil had proven its worth. And here lies the hidden truth. The oil was not just oil. It was more than fuel. It represented the secret life of readiness, faith, prayer, obedience, love, and perseverance. Things no one else could see, things prepared in silence long before the midnight cry. Others might have mocked them earlier. Why carry that heavy flask? Why be so cautious? But now, in this crucial moment, their wisdom shone brighter than any lamp. The wise virgins stood ready, their lamps blazing like stars in the night sky, their oil vessels glistening with the assurance of victory. They would not miss the bridegroom. They would not be left behind. Lesson woven in, the wise knew that waiting could be longer than expected. They prepared in silence for what others thought would never come. Their extra oil separated them from the careless. The midnight cry had awakened all 10 virgins, but while the wise stood firm with lamps blazing, the foolish virgins trembled in horror. Their lamps sputtered weakly, flames shrinking, smoke rising. The oil was almost gone, and their wicks threatened to die out at any moment. Panic set in. Their hands shook as they tilted their lamps, desperately trying to coax the flame back to life. But it was no use, the fire had no fuel. The light grew dimmer, dimmer, until it flickered like the breath of a dying man. "Quick, give us some oil," they begged, voices trembling as they turned to the wise virgins. Their eyes were wide with fear, their faces pale under the moonlight. But the wise, though compassionate, shook their heads. "If we give you our oil, there will not be enough for us and for you. Go quickly, buy for yourselves." The foolish ones staggered back, stunned. How could this be happening? They had carried lamps like the others. They had waited in the same place, heard the same cry, and yet they were empty. Their outward appearance was the same, but inside they had nothing left to burn. They never thought the bridegroom would delay this long. They never imagined their small portion of oil would run dry. They had assumed readiness without true preparation. Now the street that once promised joy became a place of shame. Their lamps, meant to shine brightly, had become lifeless sticks of clay. Fear swallowed them whole. They scattered into the night, running desperately toward the marketplace, their feet pounding on dusty roads, their hearts racing with dread. But deep inside they knew the truth. They were already too late. The foolish virgins looked ready on the outside but were empty on the inside. Their negligence was exposed at the very hour when light mattered most. Outward religion cannot replace inward readiness. The night stretched longer than anyone expected. At first, the lamps blazed bright, laughter filled the air, and anticipation was high. But as the hours dragged on, the excitement thinned into silence. The bridegroom did not come. The wise virgins kept their lamps steady, pouring oil in small portions, conserving every drop with patience. The foolish ones, already restless, muttered under their breath, their lamps sputtering weakly. The village grew still. Stars scattered across the heavens, cold and distant, as if watching from above. The wind whispered through olive trees, carrying with it the chill of the long night. Time moved slowly, so slowly it felt like eternity. One by one, even the strongest eyelids grew heavy. Heads nodded. Breaths deepened. Soon all 10 virgins, both wise and foolish, succumbed to slumber. They did not know when he would come. They only knew he was coming. And so they slept, lamps beside them, oil vessels tucked near, hearts caught between hope and weariness. Then, suddenly, like a lightning bolt in silence, a cry pierced the air. "Behold the bridegroom! Go out to meet him!" The virgins awoke with a start. The foolish scrambled, fumbling in terror as their lamps went out completely. The wise, though startled, acted swiftly, pouring oil into their lamps, their flames roaring back to life. The streets filled with voices, doors flung open, villagers rushing out. The sound of drums and flutes rose in the distance. A glow appeared on the horizon, torches, servants, and the procession of the bridegroom himself. The delay was over. The waiting had ended. And now, in this midnight moment, the true difference between wisdom and folly stood exposed for all to see. The delay of the bridegroom tested everyone. Even the faithful grew weary and slept. But those who had prepared in advance were ready to rise again. Readiness is not about never falling asleep, but about having oil when the call comes. The night had changed. The streets that had been silent moments before now trembled with life. Torches flared in the distance. Music swelled with drums, flutes, and joyful shouts. The bridegroom had finally arrived. From the horizon, a glow moved closer and closer. Lanterns carried by the wedding procession, servants lifting banners, children skipping with excitement. The villagers clapped, doors swung open, and voices rose in chorus. "Behold the bridegroom! He comes for his bride." The wise virgins leapt to their feet. Their lamps, fueled with extra oil, blazed like miniature suns, scattering the shadows. Their faces shone with relief and joy. They had waited through the long night, and now their preparation had found its reward. One whispered, trembling with excitement, "It's time. He's here." With steady steps, the wise virgins joined the crowd, their lamps lifted high. The light they carried was not just for themselves. It was to honor the bridegroom, to guide him through the darkness into the feast prepared. Their waiting, their patience, their hidden oil, all had brought them to this glorious moment. But behind them chaos erupted. The foolish virgins stumbled in despair, their lamps blackened, their wicks cold. They clutched at the air as if to catch light from nothing. In their desperation they had run into the night searching for oil. They had knocked on doors, begged from merchants, pleaded in panic. But oil bought at the last minute is never the same as oil stored in secret long before. By the time they returned, breathless and weary, the scene had changed. The bridegroom had entered the wedding hall. The wise virgins, glowing with light, had followed him inside. The villagers trailed after, and then, with a sound that shook the night, the great door to the feast was shut. The door. Thick, heavy, final. Its iron hinges groaned as it closed, and when it slammed into place, it echoed like thunder across the empty streets. A barrier now stood between those inside and those left outside. The foolish virgins ran forward, their hands pounding against the wood. Their cries pierced the night. "Lord, Lord, open to us. Please open the door." They pressed their faces against the cracks, their tears staining the wood, their voices breaking with sorrow. But from within came a voice, calm, unyielding, and chilling to the soul. "Truly I say to you, I do not know you." The word struck harder than the closing door. It was not just rejection, it was finality. They had been part of the waiting, they had carried lamps, they had appeared ready. But when the moment came, their emptiness was revealed. Silence followed. The music inside grew louder, laughter rising as the feast began. The foolish virgins stood outside in darkness, the door a wall between joy and despair, between light and night. And there, in the cold emptiness of regret, they realized what every soul must face. Readiness cannot be borrowed, salvation cannot be shared, and the midnight cry waits for no one. The closed door is the sharp edge of the parable. Jesus' warning is clear. There will be a time when the chance to prepare is gone. On that day, it will not matter how often we appeared ready, how much we blended in with others, or how loudly we cry at the end. Only the oil within, the faith, obedience, and devotion we carry, will matter. The parable of the 10 virgins is not just about a wedding in ancient Israel. It is about us. It is about today. The 10 virgins represent people who call themselves followers of Christ. All 10 looked the same on the outside. They all carried lamps, they all went out to meet the bridegroom, and they all heard the midnight cry. But only 5 were truly ready. In the same way, today many people go to church, sing songs, read verses on their phones, and appear to be waiting for Christ's return. But when the tests of life come, when faith is challenged, when temptation knocks, when the world grows dark, only those with oil in their vessels will endure. So what does oil look like in our modern lives? Oil is not something you can buy in a store. Oil is your secret walk with God. It is the time you spend in prayer when no one is watching. It is the word of God hidden in your heart, not just on your lips. It is the strength built from obeying God even when it costs you something. Think about it. Some people have lamps, they post Bible verses on social media, wear crosses around their necks, and talk about faith. But when the storms of life hit, when sickness comes, when persecution rises, when temptations burn hot, their light goes out because there is no oil inside. Others keep their vessels filled daily. They may not shout the loudest, they may not look the most spiritual on the outside, but deep inside they carry an unseen reserve of oil. When hardship comes, they still shine. When trials stretch long, they endure. When the midnight cry comes, they are ready. And isn't that how life is today? We live in a world that is distracted, rushing, addicted to pleasure, always looking for quick answers. Many live as if the bridegroom will never come. People fill their lives with busyness, entertainment, and empty religion.